The monitors flatlined as Dr. Marcus Chen stood frozen, watching 22 years of medical expertise crumble before his eyes. Time of death, 3:42 p.m., he whispered, removing his gloves with trembling hands. But before the nurse could record it, the hospital room door burst open. A disheveled man in faded jeans and a wrinkled button-down rushed in, clutching a worn leather journal. "Wait," he commanded, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who had nothing left to lose. "I know what's wrong with her. If you're moved by stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, hit that like button and subscribe to see more incredible true stories of human resilience and unexpected heroes." The patient was Sophia Williams, a vibrant 19-year-old college sophomore whose mysterious illness had confounded every specialist at Boston Memorial Hospital. 3 months earlier, she had been captaining her university's debate team. Now, she lay unconscious, her body systematically shutting down despite the best efforts of the hospital's elite medical team. The man who had just interrupted death itself was David Reeves, a 42-year-old high school science teacher and single father of 2. He wasn't a doctor. He had no medical degree. What he did have was a desperate determination born from watching his wife die from the same puzzling symptoms 7 years earlier. "Sir, you need to leave," Dr. Chen said firmly, placing a hand on David's shoulder. "This is a restricted area." David shrugged off the doctor's hand. "Her fingernails," he said, pointing to Sophia's hands. "The vertical ridges, the slight yellowing at the cuticles. My wife had the same marks. It's not lupus. It's not autoimmune. It's copper toxicity combined with a rare genetic mutation that prevents proper metabolism." The room fell silent. Dr. Chen stared at the man, then at Sophia's hands. He'd noticed the nail abnormalities but had attributed them to malnutrition from her extended illness. "How could you possibly know that?" asked Dr. Eliza Winters, the neurologist who had been consulting on Sophia's case for weeks. David opened his journal, revealing pages of meticulous notes, medical research, and correspondence with obscure specialists around the world. "Because I've spent 7 years trying to understand what killed my wife. Too late for her, but maybe not for this girl." Sophia's parents, who had been keeping vigil in the corner of the room, stepped forward. Hope flickered in their exhausted eyes for the first time in months. "Please," her mother whispered, "listen to him." Against hospital protocol and his better judgment, Dr. Chen ordered the specific tests David suggested. 24 hours later, the results confirmed what the grieving science teacher had proposed. Sophia was suffering from Wilson's disease complicated by a secondary genetic mutation so rare it appeared in only 1 in 10 million people. The treatment began immediately. David stayed at the hospital, sleeping in the waiting room, ready to answer questions as they arose. His children, Emma, 14, and Jake, 11, brought him clean clothes and homework they completed together during the long hours of waiting. "Why are you doing this?" Dr. Winters asked David one evening as they shared coffee in the hospital cafeteria. "You didn't know Sophia before this?" David stared into his cup. "When my wife was sick, I promised her I'd find answers. I was too late for her, but I kept searching anyway. I couldn't save her, but maybe that journey wasn't pointless if it saves someone else." 3 weeks into the treatment, Sophia opened her eyes. By the 6th week, she was sitting up, speaking in short sentences. The hospital staff began referring to her recovery as the miracle on the 5th floor. What no one saw were the quiet moments when David sat with his children in the hospital chapel, explaining to them why he had to help this stranger. "Sometimes," he told them, "the worst thing that happens to you can become someone else's salvation. That's how we make meaning out of suffering." As Sophia grew stronger, the story of her recovery, and the unlikely hero who made it possible, began to spread throughout the hospital. Dr. Chen, initially skeptical and defensive, found himself humbled by the experience. "In medical school, they teach us that we're the experts," he confessed to David. "They never prepare us for the possibility that sometimes, the person with the answer might be the one without any credentials at all." David shook his head. I do have credentials. I'm a husband who couldn't save his wife. That's the most powerful motivation there is. 6 months after David had burst into her hospital room, Sophia walked out of Boston Memorial on her own 2 feet. The media had gotten wind of the story by then, the mysterious illness, the 22 specialists who had failed, and the science teacher who had succeeded where they had all failed. At a small celebration in the hospital conference room, Sophia approached David. "How do I thank the man who gave me my life back?" she asked. David looked at his children, who had become fixtures at the hospital, completing science homework and befriending staff. "Live it well," he said simply. "And maybe consider studying medicine. The world needs doctors who understand that knowledge can come from unexpected places." The story might have ended there, a miraculous recovery, a bittersweet victory for a widower still mourning his wife, but it didn't. Dr. Chen and Dr. Winters approached David with a proposal, to establish a diagnostic center for rare diseases that would bring together medical professionals and patients' families as equal partners in solving medical mysteries. "Your wife's death wasn't meaningless," Dr. Winters told David. "It created a ripple that saved Sophia, and now it might save countless others." 2 years later, the David Reeves Center for Collaborative Diagnosis opened its doors, named after David's late wife. The center pioneered a new approach to medicine, one that valued the obsessive research of desperate loved ones alongside the expertise of trained physicians. Sophia Williams became its first research fellow while still completing her undergraduate degree. Her focus, the genetic mutation that had nearly killed her, and that David had identified through years of solitary study. On the day the center opened, David stood at the podium, his children beside him, and addressed the crowd of medical professionals, patients, and families. "We're taught that heroes wear white coats or uniforms," he said. "But sometimes, heroes are just people who refuse to accept that nothing more can be done. Sometimes, the most powerful credential isn't a medical degree, it's love that continues to search for answers even after it's too late." As he spoke, he noticed a young doctor in the back of the room, listening intently. It was Dr. Chen, who had left his prestigious position at Boston Memorial to join the center's staff. 22 doctors couldn't save Sophia Williams, David continued. Not because they weren't brilliant or dedicated, but because medicine still has frontiers that no single perspective can conquer alone. The future of healing lies not just in technology or expertise, but in collaboration between those who know the science and those who know the patient. The David Reeves Center went on to solve hundreds of medical mysteries over the next decade. Its approach, combining professional expertise with the insights of those who loved the patients, revolutionized the treatment of rare diseases. And David? He continued teaching high school science, raising his children, and volunteering at the center that bore his wife's name. He never remarried, but he found a different kind of love in the community that had formed around his family's tragedy and the hope it had unexpectedly created. Emma eventually became a geneticist, specializing in the mutation that had taken her mother. Jake became a counselor for families navigating medical crises. And Sophia Williams became the center's director after completing medical school, living proof that sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected sources. On quiet evenings, David still opened his leather journal, adding new research, new cases, new possibilities. The journal that had once been a record of grief had transformed into a living document of hope, proof that even our deepest wounds can become someone else's healing. As for Dr. Chen, he often told medical students the story of the day he nearly pronounced Sophia Williams dead. "That was the day I learned the most important lesson of my career," he would say. That sometimes, the expert in the room isn't the one with the most degrees. Sometimes, it's the one with the most at stake. In a world that often separates people by credentials and specialties, the story of David Reeves and Sophia Williams reminds us that the most powerful force in healing isn't always expertise, it's the refusal to give up, the willingness to look where others haven't, and the courage to speak up when everyone else has fallen silent. If this story touched your heart, remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more extraordinary tales of ordinary heroes who changed lives forever. Share in the comments if you've ever witnessed or experienced a moment when an unexpected person provided the solution everyone else had missed. Sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that remind us that expertise comes in many forms, and that hope can persist even after 22 experts have given up.